rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Oh, goodness. Hello, everyone. Welcome to American Perspective. I didn't realize that my mic was already open, unmuted. You know, they call it an open mic when it's unmuted, but I didn't realize that it was. I went and I pressed the button and I realized, wait a minute, that button just went to mute, not unmute. That's what happens in the biz sometimes. You make mistakes. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Where am I at here? Oh, yes. Okay. So, apparently there's a new study or something out, and, well, it doesn't paint Gen Z in a very flattering way. We'll get to that here in just a moment. Plus, if you're a governor of, a state and you're up for re-election, yeah, there's some bad news for Harry Enton, as well as a couple others, especially if you're in California. Well, good news for those of you who are in California who are intelligent conservatives, but bad news for California if you're a leftist lunatic. Maybe. We'll see. Also, I don't know if anybody's been paying attention, but Iran and the conversations with Trump, things are heating up over there once again. And so we're going to take a look at that. All right, if we can get to it. But let's go ahead and get things kicked off. First, tonight is who is up? Oh, yes. It is the wonderful Bonnie. Bonnie is up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I see her over in the green room right now. She's warming up her vocal cords, doing her little, whatever it is, the scales or whatever, to get herself all warmed up. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one, like me. Place your hand over your heart and follow along with Bonnie as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I thank you, Bonnie, for that wonderful, wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting or performing the pledge in your style and take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file it's created. Send it off to me. You can attach it to an email and send that email off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. I've got 21 of these things. I need 26 by the end of 2026. Quick math tells me that I need 5 more. That means if you haven't done it yet, please do it. Oh, and if you do it on your phone, which most people do, but if you do it on your phone, all you need to do is take that file, hit the share option. That's S-H-A-R-E, the share option, and you will be able to send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I'll put you into the rotation. Yeah, apparently G made it off the couch. Yay. Congratulations. He's been feeling a little under the weather recently. So, and still prayers for 3 Chevys, significant other, wife, whatever they call it, better half. Better 7/8, whatever. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, prayers. We need prayers. Prayers for for 3 Chevys, better side, better half. Anyway, let's move on to tonight's headline sponsor, which is no surprise to anybody who's been a part of this show. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays are all reserved for the Institute on the Constitution. Yes, that is the Institute on the Constitution, where they were formed back in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education from a biblical world view. And they mention that as a 3-step process to help. It's called the Pray, Study, Act plan. So the Pray, Study, Act plan, you head off to theamericanview.com to go and check this out. But the first step, obviously, is to pray. You got to pray for your country. And I know a lot of people are praying now. We're heading into Lent. Ash Wednesday was yesterday. And so there are plenty of Catholics who are out there who have ashes on their foreheads, who are running around with ashes on their foreheads because they attended Ash Wednesday services. I know, like Jack Posobiec has them on his head. Anyway, you pray for your country. Pray. You should always pray. You should pray in the morning, pray in the evening. Pray all the time. And then what you need to do is you need to study. Well, how do you study? How do you study to restore the constitutional republic? Well, it's actually not that hard. You go to study on their website at theamericanview.com, and on the drop down, which you can see right up here in the corner, you go and you click on their U.S. Constitution course, which is right there. You click on that, and you'll get taken to their study page where you sign up. Right above my head, right here, is the first sign up page right there. All you need is your first name, last name, and an email address. You could put in John Smith and then your email address. Doesn't make any difference. But they will send you 12 lessons over the course of 12 weeks. Each lesson is about 15 to 20 minutes long. Really not that long when you think about it. And you can go through the entire course, the U.S. Constitution course, which is, by the way, a nationally recognized 100% free online course, and study the U.S. Constitution. Then, after you do that, you can go and join them in person. These are all their courses that they're having in person. These are their in-person courses. They've got a bunch of them. Truth of America's Founding. You got the U.S. Constitution course. They've got state constitution courses. And once you go through all of those and you've learned, you've studied, and now what you need to do is act. So what do you do to act? Well, you either become a member or you become an instructor. That's right. Become an instructor after going through all those classes. Now take your knowledge that you've learned and pass it on to others. And you do that by becoming an instructor. They've got several different levels of instructors and all kinds of different stuff that you can go and do. You can host your own classes in your own neighborhood. You don't have to travel anywhere, but you can host your own classes in your own neighborhoods, and you'll be able to pass along the information and the knowledge that you now have of the biblical worldview of the Constitution and our founding and everything else alongside it. And as a part of that, if you go to shop, it's a little button on right there over there on the right-hand side, right upper right. It says shop. Click on that. You can pick up all kinds of stuff from them. But my personal favorite is to head off to the Legacy Library. You go off to the Legacy Library and you click on this thing called this Leather Constitution book right here. And you get yourself one of these guys, which is a nice, sexy, rounded corner book. This book has numbered Contains genuine Roman numerals placed in ascending numerical order at no additional charge. The stitching is so strong that it can keep you from responding to your mother-in-law's opinions. But take a look at this thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. No cheap glue here, folks. It is stitched all the way through the leather and the pages contained within. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that if you have a problem with it within that time frame, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. The stitching redefines the nature of tough. It's the come and take it tough. Beef jerky tough. Slap your mama tough. And at least according to G, who just got off of the couch. Anyway, head on over to theamericanview.com. Go to their legacy library and pick yours up today. Or if you don't, want to go through all of those steps, you can also head off to constitution.americanperspective.online, and that'll take you right to the page that has this on it. It is buddy attested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved. My youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will get you studied up for your civics badge in scouting, as well as your civics exam, along with that naturalization test. It's all right here in this book, The Constitution. You can grab onto this, man, and I'm telling you, you'll give digestive issues to those liberals. Carry it around with you. When they question you on things like, things like how the states are the only ones that have power to do any voting and that voter ID act is unconstitutional, you can whip this thing out and you can point it out to them that no, Congress does actually have the right to create any regulation or law, rule, whatever, except for the places of choosing senators. That is the only thing that stays in the state's hands. Anyway, go and check it out. Go and grab yours today. Constitution.americanperspective.online. Go to theamericanview.com and check out all of their other offerings from the Institute on the Constitution. And I thank them for being a sponsor of this show. All right. Well, I already alluded to it. Ash Wednesday was yesterday, and there was plenty of people that are walking around with ashes on their forehead today because they attended Mass. Now, I used to be Catholic. I'm not Catholic much anymore. In fact, I wasn't even fully confirmed in the church, and as far as that goes. So, I'm not that really matters. I mean, I'm sure I could go to Gone yesterday and gotten the ashes on my forehead if I wanted. But anyway, one thing that I did notice from yesterday, which by the way, Ash Wednesday is the indicator to the beginning of Lent, which for those that don't understand the liturgical season of Lent, it's basically what you're supposed to do is give up something for the season of Lent all the way up until Easter. It's a thing, you call it like a fasting or something like that. Okay. So anyway, yeah, here. Ms. T was questioning it, was like, okay, is that what that is? Yeah, it's this right here. You can see it. This younger lady has ash on her head. And so there you go. But anyway, this is basically the start of the liturgical season of Lent in the Christian religion. And it's a sacrifice that you're supposed to make during Lent. It's sort of like the whole fasting thing. Many times, also too, no meat on Friday. You can eat fish, but not any kind of meat like lamb or beef or chicken or any of that stuff. And so you go and you have fish on Fridays. But anyway, the one thing that I've noticed on the social medias all over the place is that, none of the leftists in the Democrat Party recognized that it was Ash Wednesday and didn't even recognize that it was Lent. Now, Lent is one of the, outside of Christmas, which is the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the second holiday, actually what I think is the more celebrated one because it's actually more specifically for Jesus, is Easter. And Easter is, of course, the celebration of the death of Christ and his ascension into heaven, where we wait in joyful hope for his second coming. And anyway, the Democrat Party, decided to just ignore Lent, ignore the Christian religion and the Catholics and everything else, ignore all of that. And they posted on X about, Ramadan and the Lunar New Year. They've pretty much kind of like just foregone Christians because, well, according to the Democrat Party, Christians are the evil that are out there. So, yeah. Anyway, of course they did. Yeah, of course they did. Well, they of course have to celebrate all of that. So, whatever. The Democrat Party doesn't like Catholics and Christians. They don't. They clearly don't. So, anyway. Well, if you're a governor and you're up for a race this season, well, you might not be hanging onto your seat very much longer. Harry Engine's got some bad news for the Democrats in terms of the gubernatorial races across the United States. And well, I'll just go ahead and let him explain it to you right now.
Yeah, governors have a whole lot of power, and there's all this talk of a Democratic wave, but the gubernatorial races nationwide should stand as a wake-up call for Democrats, because take a look here, the race raiders, governors post-2026 election, at least tilting to the Republicans. Look at this, a majority, 26. That is, at this point, the number of governors that are expected, at least tilting towards the Republican Party at this point. Democrats come in at just 20. The rest of the races are toss-up. Of course, you sum up to 50. And I will note that the Republicans right now hold a 26 to 24 gubernatorial seat advantage. So at this point, it doesn't look like Republicans on the net and the aggregate are actually going to lose any governorships. In fact, when you add in those toss-ups, they may gain. So this should stand as a major wake-up call to Democrats, because if there's a wave building, it has not, at least at this point, hit the state level when it comes to governorships.
And add to that, you point out that when it comes to governor's races, Democrats have had a bit of a problem over recent years.
Yeah, they have had a big problem recently. If you go back, the last time that Democrats held a majority of governorships was all the way back in 2010, and that streak is expected to continue. And I will note, I went all the way back through the record books, Kate Baldwin. I went all the way back through the record books. This is now the longest streak in which Democrats did not hold a majority of governorships in at least a century. This is a massive problem for Democrats because, as we mentioned at the top, a lot of the policy is determined on the state level. And if all of a sudden you can't actually lead a majority of governorships, the executive branch on the state level, that means Republicans are, in fact, forming and implementing most of the policies in the states, and therefore a lot of the policies nationwide.
Well, and the power of the governor also has to do with how the state legislature it looks. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, okay, so it's not just the governorships. How about those state legislatures, right? Okay, take a look here. Republicans have held a majority of state legislatures since 2012. And again, this is the longest such streak dating back at least a century in which Republicans have held the majority of the state legislatures. In fact, for much of the 20th century, what you saw was Democrats actually held more state legislatures than Republicans did. And now it is the exact opposite. And if you go state legislature by state legislature, at this point, it seems likely, of course, still uncertain, since we have a number of months until November elections, that Republicans will continue the streak of holding the majority of state legislatures, continue their streak of holding the majority of governorships, and therefore Democrats will be locked out of holding a power in positions that really do determine a lot of the policy nationwide. As I said, this should stand as a wake-up call for Democrats, because at this point, Republicans look like they're going to continue to hold the majority of governorships.
Now, this is something a lot of people are like, oh, well, this doesn't really mean I'm at. Well, I'm just going to tell you right now, folks. You know, when you have a young person who is sitting there saying, why should I vote when my vote doesn't count? Well, it doesn't count on the national level very easily, but when you look at the actual legislation that affects you directly, it's all the stuff that is closest to you. And so whenever I hear a young person sit there and say, hey, by the way, you know, I don't want to vote because my vote doesn't count. I mean, we have the Electoral College, so who cares? Blah, blah, blah. And I go through and I explain to them, and I said, it's not, don't worry about the presidential one. Okay, don't worry about the presidential one. But just remember that it's your local and state that really can affect you on your day-to-day. Well, California has a 2026 gubernatorial election going on right now, and it's a primary election, but California has what they call the top two primary, meaning that the top two vote getters, which, by the way, this is kind of how the presidency used to run in our country before we ended up with the two-party system that we do today. But the top two people in the country, in the state of California that are voted for, they move on to the general election. And so whenever you have those top two kind of primary type system where it's not a Democrat primary, Republican primary that we do in the presidential, what ends up happening is you could end up with either two Democratic candidates or two Republican candidates. And as of right now, well, California, you guys might end up with two Republican candidates. Take a look at this poll. So this poll is comparing December 2025 to February 2026, so about 2 months difference. And Hilton, who is a Republican, I think it's Steve Hilton, is leading the field right now with 17% of the vote for the primary. Following him is both Swalwell and Blanco. Swalwell, of course, is a Democrat. Swalwell, you know, the bang, 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 bang person. And Bianco, who is, there's some sort of scandal going on with him. But anyway, they are both polling roughly 14% of the vote. And then you have Porter, who is a Democrat. He's at 10% of the vote. He actually lost a percentage. You have Steyer, who is a Democrat. He's gained. He's at 9%. And then you have Becerra, Villagrosa, and 21% of the state is still saying that they're undecided. So sometime between December and February, there was a 10% drop there in the undecideds, which got splattered across everybody pretty much for the most part, with the exception of Steyer and Villagrosa. Or Villagrosa. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so there you go. You very well could end up with, if Bianco, if Bianco and Hilton come in, man, you could end up with a no choice but a Republican for your governorship in California. Wouldn't that be fun? I think that would be fantastic, to be honest with you. Oh, and of course, the things have changed a lot. They've kind of moving around. So the Republican electorate is split between Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco. Hilton picks up a plurality, though, of independent voters at 22%. So, yeah, this is Democratic voters still have not clearly coalesced around one candidate because you have Swalwell, Porter, Steyer, and the other 22% are undecided across that. So, going to be interesting. Going to be interesting to hear or to see what happens in California. Well, one thing that is happening in California is apparently Gavin Newsom heading off and jet setting off to Munich. Well, like I said, AOC kind of tanked it. What's her name out of Michigan? She tanked it. And it looks like even Gavin Newsom tanked it. Apparently, according to a poll that was, by the way, he'd been trashing the United States over there, and he hasn't really been doing much governing in California. But apparently, in a poll over there, is his approval rating has dropped to 44%, and 45% disapprove of the job that he is doing. And that's a 3-point decrease in Newsom's approval since December, and a 6-point increase in disapproval. So, yeah, his chances, they're kind of like extending this out, or I should say expanding it out, or extrapolating it. That's the word I'm looking for. Extrapolating this out and saying that if this continues, his chances of a 2028 run for president are probably going down the crapper, because they don't spell success for a nationwide campaign. And speaking about that, there was a site or a X poster called the Kevin Dalton, who replied to Gavin Newsom and was like, hey, dude, you're number one in homelessness out of 50. You're number one in poverty out of 50. You're number one in retail crime out of 50. You're number one in gas prices out of 50. You're number one in illiteracy out of 50. You're number one in wage stagnation out of 50. You're number one in frivolous lawsuits out of 50. You're number 3 in unemployment out of 50. Number 2 in housing costs out of 50. And I could go on, he says. So in other words, all of Gavin Newsom's quote-unquote successes are actually Gavin Newsom's failures. Anyway. Oh, boy. Well, one thing is true. Regardless of what you think, there is one thing that is true, and that is that you need to fact-check the news that you're getting and question all kinds of major media reports. And believe it or not, Americans universally agree that this is the case. So you should fact-check media reports. Hey, fact-check me. I don't care. And you shouldn't just simply trust what you're being told. And even half of them say that they don't even need to follow the news to stay informed. Well, because there's shows like mine. I'm not news. I'm a commentary, but I comment on the news of the day. And a lot of it is politics and current events. But fully 94%, according to this national survey of U.S. adults, 94% of both Democrats and Republicans alike think that it's important for people to do their own research to check the accuracy of the news that they get. What's more is that 2/3, roughly 66%, say it's extremely or very important to fact check what news media report. 4 in 5 adults, 4 in 5 adults say that they actually take their own advice, and that 82% report at least sometimes do their own research. including 37 who do it extremely or very often. Now, here's part of the problem, and this is where I think things are kind of falling down. Here's part of the problem. Regarding what's involved with doing your own research, 84% say that it entails comparing information from multiple sources, and 72% say that it can include utilizing search engines like Google. Yeah, don't believe Google. Do not believe Google. Do not believe Bing. I use Brave. And not that I'm here trying to push them around, but I can tell you, I use Brave. I'll use Google when Brave doesn't bring up anything. I used to use DuckDuckGo, but I use Brave now. Brave is much better, in my opinion, than DuckDuckGo. It's definitely not biased, per se. And definitely, whatever you do, don't just take whatever the AI gives you. Whatever AI engine is there, no, don't just accept whatever they give you, because many of those don't even come up correct. But anyway, more than 2/3, 70%, say that questioning what major news organizations are saying is fundamental to doing one's own research. So there you go. Anyway. Everybody wants to check their research. Everybody wants to check everything else, except there's only one problem. And I'll get to that problem in just a moment. Now, this is a new one for us here on the American Perspective channel, but hey, if you want to use something that is free as far as your money is concerned, you really need to check out Rumble Wallet. So they can freeze your accounts, they can shut off your cards, they can lock you out of your own money overnight. Banks don't protect you, they control you. That's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. Introducing Rumble Wallet, a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can own Tether Gold, real gold, on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars. Each one is fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. This isn't paper gold. This isn't an IOU. This is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. You can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can be redeemed for physical gold. That's power. And when you support creators on Rumble, like me, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet, peer-to-peer and outside of the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel buttons. This wallet is yours forever. You might want to go and check it out. Go to rumble.com and check out Rumble Wallet. Believe me, there'll be an ad that pops up. Talk about Rumble Wallet, and you can sign up for it. So go and check it out and support your creators through Rumble Wallet so no banks can get to you. All right. Okay. Well, there was an announcement. And before I tell you about this announcement, Gen Z, of course, made history with this announcement. But it's kind of a wonder as to why Gen Z ended up in this place. So there's a neuroscientist known as Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath. He's a former teacher, and he revealed that the generation born between 1997 and the early 2010s has been cognitively stunted by their over-reliance on digital technology in schools. He says, since records have been kept on cognitive development since the late 1800s, Gen Z is now officially the first group to ever score lower than the generation before them, declining in attention, memory, reading and math skills, problem-solving abilities, and overall IQ. Horvath told the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation that Gen Z intelligence dropped despite these teenagers and young adults spending more time in school than children did in the 20th century. The cause, Horvath claims, is directly tied to the increase in the amount of learning that is now carried out using what he called educational technology, or EdTech, which includes computers and tablets. The neuroscientist explained that this generation has fallen behind because the human brain was never wired to learn from short clips seen online and reading brief sentences that sum up much larger books and complex ideas. Horvath told the New York Post more than half of the time a teenager is awake, half of it is spent staring at a screen. Humans are biologically programmed to learn from other humans and from deep study, not flipping through screens for bullet point summaries. That's kind of interesting. Horvath and other experts speaking to Congress explained that humans evolved to learn best through real human interaction, meaning face-to-face with teachers and peers, not from screens. He also added that screens disrupt the natural biological processes that build deep understanding, memory, and focus. He goes, it's not about poor implementation, inadequate training, or the need for better apps in schools. Scientists said the technology itself was mismatched with how our brains naturally work, grow, and retain information. Yeah. Now, I also want to add to that, which is that our public school system is not actually training students. This out of hot air from David Strom. And this is just an example of how bad things are. School districts in affluent areas are hotbeds of left-wing activism, but in general, student performance is at least acceptable. Parents ensure that their own children do well enough and often invest heavily in supplementing public education with specialized tutoring that at least guarantees that their kids do well on standardized tests. However, when you go into public schools, and this is an example, here's an example of what New Jersey, the second grade curriculum in New Jersey, covers. Take a listen.
What is the state of New Jersey teaching second graders?
Well, you would assume that they're really focused on building basic math skills and reading skills, which presumably they are, but listen to what they throw in there. So this is for students that are supposed to have achieved these things by the end of second grade, according to their own curriculum. Differentiate between gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation. So they think that's really important for second graders, 7-year-olds, to know. But then it gets even worse. Listen to this. They need to know how to define vaginal, oral, and anal sex, how to perceive consent to sexual activity, how to identify short and long-term contraception, and safer sex methods that are effective, and how to identify and access and use them, and to prevent unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. All of this is in a curriculum that a second grader needs to know about. Can you think, like, if that was my kid coming home, like, are you kidding me? This is what the legislature and the voters of New Jersey tolerate.
Did you catch that? 7-year-olds. 7-year-olds. 7-year-olds are being asked to do all of this, to memorize all of this, to understand all of this. What? What the hell? Oh my gosh, what the hell? And it's, it's even goes even farther than that, because here is an example. Now, I don't know if you remember this. I think I covered this when I first came out with it. But there's this girl who graduated with honors at a woke school district. She got into the University of Connecticut as a result, despite being, quote, totally illiterate. She apparently cannot actually read. Like, she can't read a regular book. She can't read. Now, she is currently suing that school, that high school. And she's trying to sue that public school for millions, but yeah, she's just like, she can't read. This is the girl right here. It's this is her. I'm not going to play the video clip, but that's her. And she is, by the way, she's studying public, what is it? Public policy. That's what it is. Yeah. Now, here's some other things. So, for an example, and this is straight from the Michigan Public High School AP government class. These aren't like normal questions here, folks, but take a look at this. This is a question. So you have a rating from 1 to 10, and this question is, how do you feel about law enforcement targeting U.S. citizens such as Renee Good, Keith Porter Jr., and Alex Preddy, as well as protesters that have been harmed? What the hell kind of question is that? And here's another one. Rate from 1 to 10. How do you feel about ICE targeting people based on the language that they're speaking, their race, or where they work? Really? Really? Those are questions in a Michigan Public High School AP government class. How about, I got an idea. Hey, AP government, why don't you look at this book and get this book and read this book and read the Federalist Papers and read the Anti-Federalist Papers and read all this other stuff. Yeah, okay. Well, this is in California, apparently. California just keeps it going because here's what California has in some of their stuff. This section includes sample resources to assist educators in facilitating conversations about race, racism, and bigotry. Really? Really? Huh. Yeah. Welcome to our public education system in America. See, this is what happens when you hand over the keys to the kingdom to people like Randy Weingarten. Randy Weingarten. Yeah. By the way, teachers can apparently lobby to keep their schools closed, demand that students do not do schoolwork when the union itself is out on strike. Really? I mean, we've already got some of the shortest school years, let's say, this school season, time that you're actually in school. Like they were saying before, that this is one of the neuroscientists was saying we've actually got shorter school time, and you're trying to jam down all this other stuff? Seriously. It's just, yeah. Anyway, schools are the centers of left-wing activism. Yeah. Here's a couple of images. This is out of the Minnesota Federation of Educators. They ran what is known as a battlefield simulation, training for a quote-unquote war against ICE. And by the way, Education Minnesota is the umbrella under which all teachers' unions operate. And by claiming a 501c3 or 501c5 status, They actually evade $8.2 million in federal taxes every year. Really. Seriously. And they want to go after churches for tax evasion or whatever. Anyway. So, yeah, here's a video. This one's from Right Angle News Network. A disturbing new trend emerging across the country showing leftist teachers guiding very young students, children, some no older than kindergartners, in protests against ICE and President Trump. I mean, look at these kids. They probably don't even know. I mean, they probably don't even know how to spell ICE, much less alone understand what ICE actually stands for. Seriously. You're sitting here and you're wondering why? Why? This individual who's, all of our individuals are like, they're being indoctrinated, folks. This is the problem that we have. This is indoctrination, not education. This is indoctrination disguised as education. I mean, seriously. And these people wonder why we want to get rid of the government, the federal government educational system. Yeah. So, yeah. I can't even imagine. This is just ridiculous. And seriously, folks, if you actually read the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8, actually read the entire Constitution. I don't care. I should. Yes, I do want you to read the entire Constitution, but read every single word in the entire Constitution and find me where it states that the federal government has to have control of our educational system. I mean, seriously. What? Where? Point it out. And especially if you can find it under Article 1, Section 8 as a mandated federal governmental responsibility to be in charge of education. I would absolutely love it if you could find it and prove it to me. Still haven't had anybody take me up on my offer. And I'm not going to offer any money. Just not. All right. Not that I think that I'm wrong. It's just that, yeah, anyway. Because I know I'm right. More so than just my stance, I'm correct in all of this. Well, from the international desk, Iran has been rearing its ugly head again. Not in a necessarily negative way, but they're let's just put it this way. Like before, they're kind of dragging their feet. Now, Iran is saying that progress is being made on what they're calling the guiding principles for talks with the U.S. That's what the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on Tuesday, that the latest round of talks yielded a mutual understanding of guiding principles for even more talks. But they're typically full of bullshit anyway. But all of that being part of the case, we're actually pushing more troops into the region. And as of right now, the U.S. has the largest air power in the region since 2003, as we were, I think, gearing up for Iraq. There's talk of an Iran strike that could come within days. Israel itself is in a high alert right now. And all of this is indicating that Trump himself is losing patience with Iran. He's reportedly close to ordering a military intervention against the Iranian regime, according to one of his top advisors. He's been threatening military action against Tehran multiple times over the past 2 months amid the regime's brutal slaughter of protesters and the shaky nuclear negotiations. However, he has been focusing more on diplomatic efforts to deal with them. However, this Trump advisor told Axios that Trump is getting fed up and that he believes there is a 90% chance we will see kinetic action in the next few weeks. By kinetic action, that means military action. Now, recent talks, of course, between Washington and Tehran have seemed to have made some progress, but it doesn't appear likely that the two parties are going to reach a deal because, let's face it, Iran is not going to stop funding terrorism. They're not going to stop their ballistic missile program. They're not going to stop their nuclear program. They're not going to stop any of that. And we know that because even when they did, quote unquote, stop it, they didn't stop it. But as far as people thinking that the Iranian Navy could take out the U.S. Navy, yeah, I don't think they'd survive longer than, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes if they tried. Yeah. I don't think so. Anyway. Now, what is possible for all of this is the fact that if Trump does decide to take a step, don't think for a second that Israel is going to be left out of this. No. It's probably going to be a collaboration with the Israelis. And it'll likely not be a quick 30-plus hour flight by some, bombers that decimated the facilities here recently. Yeah. I don't think so. The kinds of military power that's headed over there, that is in the region, is not the kind of power that's going to be just a quick in and out sort of thing. It's going to be, hey, we're going to hang out here for a little while. Now, apparently, according to Carolyn Levitt, Trump has been briefed on a variety of different military operations that range from limited strikes on Iranian security forces involved in the killing of the protesters, along with other attacks on key nuclear and missile sites. She said that airstrikes are among the many, many alternatives that Trump might choose from. So, yeah. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has been gearing up for a possible military conflict with Tehran. Reuters reported that the military has been quietly preparing for potentially weeks-long operations. Now, one thing I want to point out, not that I think that necessarily that Iran is going to be a quick pushover, okay? But the reality of it is that when we went into Iraq, everybody thought that was going to be another Vietnam for us. And Starman Norman Schwarzkopf was able to sit in Baghdad within, 48 hours or whatever it was. He was in the middle of Baghdad with little to no resistance. Now, I'm not saying that the Iranians are going to be the same way, but I don't believe in any way, shape, or form. I mean, their technology is seriously behind ours. And I honestly do not think that this is going to be, that big of a deal if it does come down to it. But that being said, Iran is reportedly fortifying its military and nuclear sites as tensions grow, according to satellite images. So the stalling in the negotiations, according to let's see, Albright, David Albright, who is the Institute for Science and International Security founder. He warned on Tuesday that the more time that Tehran is given to negotiate, the better prepared it will be to protect its secret bases, like the newly built Taliban 2. Stalling the negotiations has its benefits, he says. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, Iran has been busy burying the new Taliban 2 facility. More soil is available, and the facility may soon become a fully unrecognizable bunker, providing significant protection from aerial strikes. So, yeah, they're working on putting in, obviously more stuff. Now that facility, by the way, lies within the secretive Parchin, Parchin military complex, located about 20 miles southeast of Iran, which now appears completely covered by a concrete sarcophagus, according to Institute analyses of the area. Satellite images of that particular facility, which has allegedly hosted nuclear weapons tests for more than 2 decades, show that the structure has completely vanished from satellite view. Now, work, of course, began in 2024 after it was struck by Israel. But images from late last year show that Iran has been speeding up efforts to create a metallic roof to cover the facility. As of Monday, the Institute said the structure was buried and could no longer be seen, which is a dangerous development after photos were taken of what appeared to be an explosive devices being hauled to the site back in November. So, yeah. High explosive containment vessels are critical to the development of nuclear weapons, according to Albright, but can be used in many other conventional weapons development processes. They're seeing similar concealment happening in other places, like the Isfahan, Isfahan complex, which is one of 3 Iranian uranium enrichment plants that was hit by the U.S. last June. As of last week, all 3 entrances to the tunnel complex are completely buried, according to the satellite images. Same was done at the Anyway, which houses Iran's other 2 uranium enrichment plants. So Iran is gearing up to try and make sure that we can't do anything to hurt them. Tehran has also rolled out repair and fortifying efforts at the Shiraz and Qom missile bases, which were damaged during the 12-day war with Israel last year. So, yeah. And, of course, this continues during the entire time that they're trying to negotiate, which is exactly what they do. It's exactly what they do. So don't be surprised if we strike Iran anytime in the near future. So, yeah. Now, we obviously, Chris Wright, who is the U.S. Energy Secretary, he echoed the latest warning from the U.S. On Wednesday. He basically said that the U.S. is never going to allow Tehran to acquire nuclear weapons, and America needs to be ready to take whatever action is deemed necessary to stop such an event. He says they've been very clear about what they would do with nuclear weapons, and that's entirely unacceptable. So one way or the other, we are going to end or deter Iran's march toward a nuclear weapon. And there you go. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a thumbs sideways if you're 3 Chevy across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.